Thanks for clicking on this video. Most of you probably came from my Instagram account, but I'm posting this on my beer channel, which I haven't posted in many years. But there are some subscribers there, so I mean it might be a bit confusing that this video is posted there. So just to say, this is not related to beer, but it may be of interest to people. I'm hoping it helps people out who might be in the same situation, and also just to sort of raise awareness. And really the main goal is to explain this to family and friends and former and current colleagues and acquaintances, and anyone that's been or is currently in my life. So first of all, I'm just going to do like a summary version at first, like a 10-minute summary, because I think this video is going to be quite long and not everyone will want to sit through it. So I think it makes sense if I just do a quick summary, so that people who just want to watch sort of 10 minutes of this can get a comprehensive understanding of what this is about. And then those who want to stay and watch the full video, I will go into sort of more detail about what this is, and sort of my personal story and examples, and sort of explain more about myself. So basically, at the age of 37, I've been formally diagnosed with being on the autism spectrum, basically placed on the spectrum as being high functioning, low support needs, with no intellectual disabilities. So in fact, it's kind of the opposite. I'm of gifted intellectual ability, and but still on the autism spectrum. So really, what does that mean? It basically means that my brain is wired differently to most people. So I think about it in terms of, say, like computer operating systems. Most of you are running on Windows and I'm running on Linux, and we can talk and interact with each other, but we think and process things slightly differently, and sometimes wires get crossed. Sometimes there's misunderstandings. Sometimes how we approach things, how we load a file, I might be more direct, whereas you might consider different things, or have a different way of working. So essentially, just that my brain is wired differently. So in what ways? There's three main groups of traits, symptoms, skills, challenges that they look for. I'm going to break it down into 4, because I think the third one is actually 2, but I think just in the science that they've for some reason decided to group it into 1, but for me I'm going to break it down into 4. So the first one is communication skills. So I have a difference in terms of reading and understanding non-verbal communication. So reading people's faces, reading people's thoughts and emotions displayed without them telling me, but also how I display and communicate myself non-verbally. So there's differences there, and then included in that is difficulty in communicating my emotions and understanding my emotions and effectively communicating them. Another one is like maintaining eye contact. So for me, it's a conscious thought to maintain eye contact. It doesn't come naturally. It's actually quite distracting for me, because if I'm having to think about it, then it's distracting from what the actual conversation is about. And then also there's this kind of blunt, direct communication style, which I think if some of you know me, that's quite apparent with me, as I go straight to the point. I'm not very good at small talk. The next one is social dynamics, so understanding social norms and etiquettes, understanding social nuances, expectations. So like I mentioned, not natural in making small talk or feeling the need to make small talk, understanding why small talk is important for maintaining relationships or beginning new ones. and then not natural in making and maintaining friendships and relationships. So I mean, this is, linked to communication style, but also, my approach and understanding of social dynamics can be difficult in terms of maintaining those friendships and relationships. And then the third and fourth are grouped together in the diagnosis, but I'm going to separate them. So the next one is repetitive behaviors to essentially regulate anxiety and to stay centered and just what my brain needs to function. So and that's a need to create routines and stick to routines. Things like eating the same meals repeatedly, so the same exact thing for lunch every day, pretty much the same thing for dinner every day, waking up at exactly the same time. I go to the gym at exactly the same time, ways of walking to work, the same route, same time. Just lots of different things in terms of routine just helps my brain able to know what's coming at it, and so it's able to deal with everything else that it has to deal with if it knows exactly the most direct thing that's it's going to have to do, and so anything unexpected is easier to deal with. And then part of this is also developing very strong interests in specific subjects. So if anyone knows me, I think you've all pretty much worked out that I can get very, very strong and passionate about certain subjects, whether it's Bitcoin or beer or international politics, or I think maybe a more recent one in recent years was the conflict in Tigray. I was talking and posting about that several times a day. So this is this repetitive need to research and learn and talk about and think about this specific subject. So in a way it can be a superpower, but it can also be detrimental in relationships with people who perhaps aren't as interested as me in the subject. So I might want to talk about it too much, or I might be distracted by it. I might spend 3 or 4 hours on it and forget to eat lunch, and that means you don't see me at lunchtime because I'm actually it could be work related. I could be so engrossed in something I'm doing with work that I've developed like a strong interest in. Like for me with work, it's design stuff. So if I get set on a design task, I'm deep into the design task and nothing can stop me. And then the next repetitive behavior thing that they look for is stimming. So this is any kind of repetitive movements of the body, or repetitive speech patterns, or like saying the same words. For me specifically, it's things like pacing around or tapping or twisting my fingers. These are just like sort of repetitive movements that I do that just help me in my day, especially if I'm dealing with the next one, which I'm going to tell you, which is sensory sensitivity. So this is the second part of the third one that I've decided to break down. So this is basically sensitivity to the different senses. So sensitivity to sound, to touch, to light, to smells, and also to pain. So, but the reverse for pain for me. So I have a high pain threshold. So in terms of sensitivity to sound, my brain can't filter out between the important and the background sounds. So a typical person's brain, if they're in an environment, say like a restaurant or a cafeteria or a bar, their brain is able to focus their hearing on the conversation with the person or people that they're talking to, and everything else kind of gets dimmed down so that they're able to filter it and understand what's happening. Whereas my brain just gives me everything, all at 100. So it's, every sound in that environment is coming at me at the exact kind of sound level that it is, which is, if you can understand it, that can be extremely challenging in noisy environments when I'm trying to have conversations or I'm trying to concentrate what I'm doing. So that's a really strong one for me. Sensitivity to light, not really for me. I mean, sometimes if I'm inside and I step out into the daylight, it's a bit disorientating, but it's not so bad. Sensitivity to smells, yes, my sense of smell is like a hound. And then high pain threshold. I think this helps me in things like the gym, but it's also been detrimental in terms of, medical issues, which I just sort of ignore, don't go to the doctors, because I just have a high threshold for pain. I mean, I've walked into hospitals with broken bones, and shocked people, that kind of example. So I mean, the term that most people know about, for this high functioning, low support needs is Asperger syndrome. It's a term that's not really used anymore. But you probably will have heard of many famous people who have been diagnosed with this or are suspected of having it, but they lived before we got this far in terms of an understanding. So I mean, a few people are Elon Musk, Jerry Seinfeld, Greta Thunberg. I think Albert Einstein would be considered on the spectrum. You got Chris Packham, the wildlife guy in the UK, Anthony Hopkins, the actor, Tim Burton, Dan Aykroyd, probably Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, Alan Turing. I think Bob Dylan is one. So I mean, there's many famous people, and they've contributed a lot to society. And I think that there's different traits of this means that some of them have hyper focused on certain subjects, and maybe some of them happen to have really high intellect. So it's meant that the combination has made for them to be having given 10,000 hours or more on a subject, and they become expert. And it's just in that aspect, it has been a superpower for those kind of famous people. But to say, I mean, not everyone who has this is some sort of elite genius or some sort of mystical person that's going to change the world. It's actually quite a common thing. They think it's about 1 in 50 people that are high functioning, low support needs on the spectrum. So I mean, I was able to get my diagnosis at the age of 37, which means that I basically have lived all this time without knowing either myself or other people. How I was able to do this is because, from my diagnosis report, I think it's because I have this kind of gifted intelligence, and it's allowed me to be able to learn, adapt, create strategies to essentially mask the issues that I'm facing, and it's I've managed to get by, but it's tiring, and so I think I burnt out eventually in my mid-30s from this. So seeking this diagnosis and sort of understanding myself better has been a massive revelation, and helping me to sort of regulate my life and understand myself and sort of approach my work, my relationships, friendships, everything, all aspects of my life. It's helping. In terms of how I want people to react to this is just, I'm still the same person. I've still done all the things I've done in my life. I've worked around the world. I've had friends. I've lost friends. I've dealt with some toxic people. I've made mistakes. Other people have made mistakes. I've experienced many things in my life. I've been successful in some things. I have failed in other things. I'm very much like all of you. I think an important thing to understand about about people being on the spectrum, is that no one person on the spectrum is the same. Each of those traits and sensitivities and skills or challenges that are listed can be at varying degrees for any one person. So, I mean, for me personally, I don't struggle with things like multitasking or working under pressure or being interrupted, these kind of things. So, I mean, that's why I did so well in emergency settings in a humanitarian career. It's why I've been able to work, in the field that I have. I'm more sort of, my stronger traits are more to do with the repetitive behaviors, the strong interests, my sound sensitivity, and then also sort of my understanding social dynamics, communication, in terms of that kind of crossed wires and misunderstandings with people, and also perhaps being looked at as not friendly or arrogant because I don't stop and talk to people in the corridor, or I don't show up to social functions because I find it stressful, that kind of thing. So just say I can go into way more detail in the video, but just as a summary, I've been diagnosed. It's been a good process. It took a long time, but I think it's been worth it. I wasn't sure if I was going to come out with this, but I think actually I've got to be myself. I've got to acknowledge who I am. There's some skills that I have which other people don't have. There's some challenges I have which other people don't have. But me as a person, this is me. Hello, still Alistair. But yeah, thanks for listening. And if you're interested in more of the story and sort of understanding more about this and more about me, keep listening. If not, I'm happy to talk to people, happy to answer questions, whatever, yeah. So yeah, thanks. Right, so that was the summary. It was a bit longer than 10 minutes, but hopefully that was okay. I just wanted to record a much shorter version of the long video that I initially recorded. I realized that over an hour long video for people to watch and listen to is a bit much for a lot of people. So hopefully the summary was good enough to get across what I've been diagnosed with, the kind of key factors about it, and some key points about it, what it means in my life. So appreciate you guys listening and watching that. If you're interested in the more deeper information and this kind of story of my life and how I got to my diagnosis, and so I share quite a few personal things, keep watching, and apologies if there's a little bit of repetition. I recorded the summary after the fact, so it's a bit disjointed, but I just want to get this out there as quick as possible. So keep watching. All right, thanks for sticking with it. So let me go back through the what Asperger's or being high functioning, low support needs on the autism spectrum means. So I gave you 4 sort of groups of symptoms, traits, skills, challenges, and there's 3 on the actual scientific diagnosis, but I like to divide it into 4 because I think one of them, I'm not sure the history of it, but it looks like it's sort of just been smushed in with it. I can see how they're related, but I find it better if I split it into 4. So I can talk to you a bit more about what it means really for me, each of those categories. So the first one is communication. I think from my reports and from my own understanding of myself, I'm quite good at communication. So the team that diagnosed me, they noted that I am able to communicate really quite well. I don't have issues that perhaps other people on the spectrum have in terms of regulating the tone of my voice. It can be a bit drony at times. I think if you watch some of my beer videos on this channel, some of them are a bit like monotone drony, but it's not so bad. So I am able to make conversation, and I'm able to sort of get through my day quite well. I'm not so much muted or blah blah blah. But what I do struggle with is sometimes there's a crossing of wires or misunderstandings in terms of me being able to read people's nonverbal communications. Sort of maybe sometimes I miss when someone isn't quite interested when I'm talking to them, so I could be going on about something like Bitcoin, and sometimes I think I can miss that I've been talking about it for too long. In other terms of communication, I think I struggle with small talk quite a lot. So this is things like coming in on a Monday morning and people asking me how my weekend was. I struggle to know how long that conversation should be. Do they really want to know about my weekend? Should I detail the different things I did on Saturday and Sunday? Do I ask about them? Like the whole thing seems bizarre to me. It's not something that comes natural to me. It's not that I don't care how people's weekends were. It's just it seems, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It just doesn't come naturally to me. And this also is an issue, say, for me in like the work corridors, if you bump into like people that you know but you don't know very well. So like someone, say, at work, you bump into them in the elevator, or sort of a friend of a friend that you bump into in the street. I struggle with those conversations. I always walk away thinking either, did I say too little? Did I say too much? Should I have like stayed longer? Did I end the conversation rudely? Like this kind of thing is in my brain because I just don't know the norms and the etiquette and what people are expecting. For me, this might make me come across as rude or whatever, but for me, because I just feel uncomfortable. I sometimes get out of those situations as quickly as possible. So I will say, yeah, I'm good. How are you? Okay, cool, great. And I'm off. Yeah. So those kind of aspects of communication have always been a struggle. I think previously, before I understood this diagnosis, I assumed that I was perhaps socially anxious. I can talk about this a bit later, but I mean, I've had a history of receiving racism and maybe a little bit of bullying at school. Although at the time I didn't really think of it as bullying, but looking back, it possibly wasn't some of the nicest things were going on. So yeah, I mean, I just always thought that I need to work on myself to be more confident. It never really occurred to me that like actually I struggle with these things because my brain doesn't work in the same way as other people. So another one is eye contact. I had never really thought about eye contact for most of my life, and it didn't really occur to me. The only time it really came up in my life is if like, say, someone in authority, maybe a police officer or a teacher, sort of demanded that I look them in the eye when they're talking to me. So like that's probably the only time it's ever really come up. But just in general, I mean, I make eye contact, I look at people, but it's briefer, or I will make eye contact with someone who is perhaps threatening to me, or is, requires me to show them that I'm not scared or something. Do you know what I mean? It's something like that. So I can very much make eye contact people. If I shake someone's hand, I know you look them in the eye because that's a respect thing and blah, blah, blah. I know things like that, but just in sort of general conversation with friends or family or whoever, eye contact is a something that I have to actively think about, and so it distracts me. So actually, if I'm looking at you in the eyes a lot, I'm consciously thinking about it. Whereas I think people with neurotypical brains, it's a natural thing for them. They can make eye contact, but also they can engage in the conversation, and the eye contact is like a secondary thing that they're thinking about, or it's a subconscious thing. Whereas for me, it's very much at the forefront, and it distracts me from the conversation. And so I am looking elsewhere, but that if I'm looking elsewhere, that means really I'm really listening to you, because I'm focused really on what you're saying. So that can be, I guess, an issue in terms of what people sort of read from that. And then, yeah, I guess in terms of communication, you're like struggling to make new friends, talking to new people, really, because I have to learn people's mannerisms, expectations. So I guess I've just found it difficult to sort of maybe perhaps cold approach people, or at a work event where you don't really know many people, how do you enter a group conversation? How do you speak when lots of people are trying to speak? That kind of thing. So none of that comes naturally to me, but I have learnt a lot over my life. I have improved significantly from, and I guess this could be true of lots of people who perhaps aren't on the spectrum, but may not have confidence or whatever. But just to say that, communication, generally I am good. I think it was seen in my diagnosis as one of my stronger elements, but still with some challenges, which I have outlined. This next one is social interaction and social dynamics. So I think, this is to do with things like understanding social norms and etiquettes, when you should reach out to someone, it's hard to explain, but just things that come naturally to you in terms of social dynamics is not a natural thing for me. Making friendships, maintaining friendships, keeping up with people, knowing what to say when, understanding when there is an issue that needs to be resolved, picking up on sort of group dynamics, that kind of thing is a challenge for me. Conflict resolution, sometimes I struggle with because I'm quite direct. So if there is a problem, I'll highlight the problem and try and figure it out, whereas I think sometimes people need to perhaps dance around a little bit, and there has to be a kind of back and forth, and people have to be made to feel certain ways before you can move forward. For me, that's all very alien. It's like, here's the problem, here's a solution, we both agree. Oh, we don't agree, that's fine. That kind of very black and white kind of direct thinking is my kind of way, which works very well with some people, and with others it's a bit of a challenge. So those kind of social dynamics. I just need to pull up my notes 1 second. So I kind of gel together the two, the communication skills and the social dynamics, but they are quite related. So I think how I speak to people, but then also the like navigating relationships and friendships, is because my brain is wired differently. Sometimes there is this miscommunication, misunderstandings. So I think this diagnosis is good in terms of me understanding that, and me understanding that my brain is different to other people, and if they also understand that my brain is different, we can work better in trying to harmonize, instead of people thinking, oh, I'm being difficult, or me thinking they're being difficult. We just have different needs and expectations in social interactions. And so I think I've had to learn a lot through life in order to interact with the neurotypical world, and at times I think I felt like an alien on this planet, and I think that's quite a common feeling for people on the spectrum, is that they are from a different species that has somehow been ended up on this planet, and their home planet is somewhere else, and they're having to learn how human beings interact and behave and communicate with each other. So now I understand that. I think it will help me to navigate my personal and work relationships much better. In terms of work, I think because it's more structured and it's more formal, I can navigate that better. I know the etiquettes of emails. I know how to reach out to senior people. I know how to interact and request things and coordinate and liaise. I know all of that. That's kind of, I find that easy. What I find harder is the less formal, perhaps the social side of an office, interacting with people in different teams and blah blah blah, sort of socially. That's what I try and make an effort at, but it's not something that is natural for me. So the next one is repetitive behaviors. This one is something that is quite strong on my diagnosis. So people on the spectrum have these traits of needing routines and repetitive behaviors. So one good example for me is that I eat the same food all the time. I can go many days, weeks in a row, having the exact same dinner. And I have to consciously think, I have eaten a rotisserie chicken and vegetables every night for the past 2 weeks. I need to eat some salmon. I need to switch it up because it's not healthy to keep eating the same thing. It's hard to explain. It's not that I don't like other foods, or if I came home and say a friend had left something else for me to eat, I will refuse to. It's not like that. It's just I feel comfort and less. I don't know. My anxiety is eased by routine, and if I don't have routines, other things, negative things can come into play. So, for example, I think through my teenage years and early 20s, and this is probably normal for a lot of people, even neurotypical people, I partied too much. I drank too much alcohol, and my way of maintaining and controlling this is that I have a set routine in which I do not touch alcohol Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes even Thursday, and most of the time also on Sunday. So it's really maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I maintain a gym attendance, and I do things like running and backpack rucking, like those kind of military style trainings, etc. This is a routine that helps me stay on top of the negative coping mechanisms that I could tend towards. So I've got very good at this. I do not struggle at all, really, with negative coping mechanisms like alcohol or etc. I think I might have done in the past when I was much younger, but now I've learned that routines, like healthy, positive routines, are the way for me to regulate myself. So yeah, that's one aspect of repetitive behaviors is needing and to maintain routines and do the same things regularly. Another aspect is developing strong interests in specific subjects. I see this as a bit of a superpower, but it can have some negatives. So I'll start with the superpower stuff. I can develop an insanely strong passion, interest in a subject, and it will almost consume me in my spare time because I need to learn and read about and watch about and understand and practice and get better at this particular thing. And it's come up many times in my life. I mean, I used to collect sneakers, and I became like a sneaker reseller. I had like bots, and I was like, buying limited edition sneakers and buying several of them and reselling them for 10 times the price, and it was like a whole thing that I had running. I've had Bitcoin investment and sort of constant interest that has never stopped since 2017. It's almost a daily thing for me. I will at some point in my day I will allot time to Bitcoin, reading about the latest news and blah blah blah. Another one is beer brewing. I got really deep into beer brewing. I mean, I went from starting with just a bucket to I basically have a small professional version of a brewery in my apartment. So that's a strong special interest. And then I get like mini ones. So I mean, if you remember in the past few years, if you know me on my Instagram account, I talked a lot almost every day, several times a day, about the conflict in Tigray region of Ethiopia. So I mean, I was really deep into that. So this is a kind of special interest, and part of this is that I can hyper focus on things. I can just lock down, and sometimes I can forget to eat meals. I forget that I'm thirsty. I don't get tired. I can really just keep going and going and going and going. So in a way, that's a superpower. So in terms of, say, my work, if I needed to learn a new skill, such I needed to learn Adobe design software, I just fixated on it. It became a special interest, and I just learnt it super quick because I spent hours and hours and hours on it, watching everything I could and practicing and yeah. So in that sense, it's a superpower. But I just talked about missing meals and that kind of thing. On the other side, I have to be aware about it because I can talk too much about it. I can bore people. I can miss meals. That can be frustrating for it can be frustrating for other people. Say if I'm not talking, or I've spent 2-3 hours doing something when I should have been doing something else. This kind of thing can be a problem. I think at work I managed to regulate it quite well because I'm task orientated and I know what I need to do, and I'm good at structuring multiple tasks and stuff. So yes, it helps me at work when I need to hyper focus on doing a design thing or like analyzing something. But it can sometimes mean that in the office I will completely forget to go down to get my lunch and it will get to like 3:30 in the afternoon and I'm like, oh, I didn't eat lunch today. And I would just suddenly realize, oh wow, okay. So I mean, there's something that I need to be aware of and control, but it can have it has its benefits and its negative effects. Another one is stimming. So again, I think I have several stims, as they call it. So these are kind of like repetitive body movements, or I forget the word for it. It sounds something like echolalia, something like that. I think that's correct if I remember. It's basically just like repeating words or noises or mimicking sounds. I've done that that's got me in trouble sometimes because I hear a nice accent or an accent that interests me, and I repeat the word that they've said or the sentence that they've said, and it comes across like I'm mocking them, but I'm not. It's just that I like the sound of their voice, and so it just comes to me that I have to say it in the same way. And then in terms of repetitive body movements, I pace around a lot, and I don't do it in front of other people, but on my own in my apartment, I will pace for a long time, especially if something is bothering me or I'm anxious about something or there's something going on that I need to resolve. I will walk around, and it's almost like a cartoon in terms of pacing. I will walk into every room of my apartment, up and down. I will do maybe 100 laps. It's that strong. And then just sort of in general, I will twist my fingers a lot, especially if I'm in sort of like a group setting or a work meeting, or like in a bar or something. I do this, but kind of in my lap. So I do this. It's hard to explain, but I just sort of twist and stretch my fingers a lot. Another one is that I touch my ear like this a lot, this right ear a lot. Um, what other ones are there? I've been known to shake my legs. That's usually when I'm watching TV. I guess that can be quite annoying for some people, but yeah, I shake my legs. So these are all just sort of like repetitive movements that either I do it because it feels nice and it's like, I don't know, it's like a tick or something, or it's to relieve anxiety. And the ones that I do, sort of like the twisting fingers and the ear touch, those are kind of anxiety ones. But it doesn't have to be anxiety in terms of like what you're thinking anxiety is. It can also be that the environment is too stressful. So that gets me on to the next one, which is why they are grouped together in the ASD DSM-5, I think it's called, which is like the diagnostic criterias. They're grouped together, but I separate them because I think they're slightly different, but they are related. Like communication and social dynamics, then these two are kind of related. So it's the sensory overloads, like the sensitivities of my senses. So this is sensitivity to sound, to light, to touch, can be like, for other people can be taste and things like that. I don't struggle with those things. So some people on the spectrum can't stand certain textures of their food, smells, things like that. That those things. The only thing that I think I really, really struggle with is sound. I'm very sensitive to sound. I can't concentrate. If there's noise, if there's people talking in the office, or there's like I don't know, there's a bus outside the window. It's like, yeah, just things that you would think are just everyday sounds are just super loud in my brain, and I have to block them out with noise cancelling headphones. I've even got like earplugs and then noise cancelling headphones on top of them, so that honestly the environment around me is completely blocked out. So I've got really into reading books. That way, as you see, I've got all these stacks of books. So I think I spent most of my life not reading books because I find it so hard, because it's so, like, the world is so distracting with all the noises and everything. So I've basically plug in earplugs and noise cancelling headphones, but with nothing playing, just to dampen down the world outside so that I can read my book. I think I struggled. One example, I used to live in Ethiopia with some people who would organize a poker night very regularly, sometimes twice a week, and it used to drive me nuts. I used to be in my bedroom and I could hear the poker chips on the table, but I think the poker players, they do it as like maybe it's even their stim, like their nervous tick or whatever, but they kind of do this with the poker chips and they drop them on the table, and it was just, in my head, it was the loudest noise on the planet, and it used to drive me crazy. So I used to listen to really loud music to kind of try and drown it out, that kind of thing. So I mean, yeah, sound sensitivity is difficult for me, even to the point where I watch TV with headphones on, because I can miss what people are saying in the TV show, because there's like I said, like there's a bus outside, or the neighbors are walking around or something, you know. So that's a strong one for me. Light is not so strong for me, other than sometimes I get a bit that's kind of spaced out if I move from inside to outside, but it goes away after a couple of minutes. Smells, I said in the summary that I have the sense of smell of a bloodhound. Yeah, I mean, it's good in some aspects. I've got a 100% accuracy on my son's diapers, and I can tell instantly, even from across the room. I know exactly when he needs a change. maybe I should work for law enforcement because I can smell cannabis from very far away, even if it's not being smoked. If it's in a packet in someone's bag, I can smell it. Um, yeah, people's perfumes sometimes, um, it's super loud to me, which is even for me. I will only spray myself with a cologne or whatever once because it's too much for me and I don't want it to be too much for other people. So yeah, I'm quite sensitive in terms of my smell, but and that one doesn't bother my day very much. Um, what else? Check my notes again. Um, yeah, high pain threshold. So this, I guess this is linked to the senses, and this is like a mind-body connection thing. Um, so I mean, a lot of people on the spectrum, they say that they could struggle with coordination and maybe sports and stuff, but that's not the case for me. I've always been really good at sports. I've always had a really good hand-eye coordination. Played in sports teams and all sorts. Um, but I think one thing is this high pain threshold with sport. I think it's been beneficial to me in terms of being able to do things that other people have to stop, whether it's long distance running, playing football. I think that, I mean, one team nicknamed me the engine because I just didn't stop running. So it's just this sense that like I don't feel the tiredness or the pain at the time. It comes afterwards, like the day after, and I realize I really overexerted myself or I've really pushed myself, and now I've got to deal with the consequences that I can't walk because I've like, yeah, just run too far. I mean, one example is I ran the New York Marathon and I couldn't walk for about six days after that. That's how far I pushed myself. But at the time during the marathon, I just did it. It's hard to explain, but I don't have that connection with my body as with other people. So it can be a little bit dangerous in other circumstances. Like I could get injured because I'm pushing myself too much and I'm not noticing that I am, at my limits or beyond my limits. Which is why I really make sure I'm following this gym app on my phone, which regulates exactly my exercises and the repetitions and the weights, that kind of thing. And I've got much better at sort of understanding that I can't go full throttle all the time. So I kind of take breaks sometimes. I will take a week off every now and then, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Yeah, so those are the kind of four groups. Communication, social dynamics, repetitive behaviors, and and sensory difficulties. So what do I want to talk about next? I guess one thing that is important to understand about this, and it's the notion that being on the spectrum is not the same for everyone. So there isn't like, excuse me, I'm gonna have to get a glass of water. I'm just gonna pause this and then I'll come back. Yeah. So as I was saying, being on the spectrum is not like a set thing, and it's not like you're on this part of the spectrum, therefore you have this, and this. Your personality is this. You struggle with this, blah blah blah, and it's like that's applied to everyone. That's not how it works. Every individual on the spectrum is an individual. So the common sort of phrase that they use is that once you've met one autistic person, you've only met one autistic person. So the easiest way to think about this is there's a spectrum, and in your mind, the spectrum is hand to hand. It's like that across here, and you could fit anywhere on this. But really, you should think of the spectrum as like a music recording studio equalizer mixer board, and imagine those sliders on this EQ board, and and each thing is, say, perhaps a personality trait or a skill or like a communication skill or whatever, like all the different things. And say a neurotypical person will sort of have like a flat kind of level profile, and maybe depending on intelligence it's up here or at the middle or the average or below average or whatever. With someone on the spectrum, they have what's called a spiky profile. So they might really excel in some things, but then they will really struggle with others. So this is what it means that like each one is an individual, because one person might really struggle with light sensitivity, so they that's like a thing that's high. Others, it's not a problem. For me, it's not a problem. My sound one is high. My communication skills are much better than others. Some people really struggle with talking. Some people even have like episodes of being mute, or having shutdowns where they can't talk. That's much less of a problem for me. So this is what I mean by everyone is different, and it's much easier to think of it as a kind of EQ studio board, and it's like can be like this, and the sliders are sort of set at different things. So I mean, I've gone through the kind of common traits and symptoms and what it means for me, but that could be a completely different explanation for someone else. Someone else could do this video and tell you completely different things. But generally, there are these groupings and there are aspects of them that match, and so that's how you get diagnosed, is that you have enough of each of those things that are above the kind of neurotypical threshold, that you are diagnosed. You it's clear that you are on the spectrum. It's just that it can be kind of quite individual. What's the next thing? Yeah, so I mean, I guess you're kind of thinking from all of this, like I've met him, excuse me. There's another thing, I hate it when people drink on YouTube videos because of the sound, so I'm doing it, and I apologize to anyone who's watching this who hates to hear people drink or gulp or chew. So my apologies. Yeah, so you're probably thinking like, I've met him, I know him, this can't be true, or he doesn't have those traits that he's saying he has, or I've never seen any of that, or blah blah blah. And an important aspect of this is that with high functioning and sort of low support needs, I'm doing this because these are, I think, problematic terms, because you can be high functioning but really underneath you're not functioning well at all. But this is what I'm talking about. So with that kind of Asperger's syndrome people, Aspies, they have this ability to mask and try and fit in and hide their traits, perhaps not overtly stim. So I twist my fingers, but I think that is a way of masking, because really, I mean, like more people further on the spectrum who are more kind of overtly, or they struggle more with autism, or I don't know how to say this, like they have stronger forms of autism, they might rock back and forwards or things like that. But someone with Asperger's doesn't do that, because they know that it can come across as quite strange. So they maintain like a frame which seems normal, and the best way to think about it is It's like a swan on a lake. So you see the swan on the lake, and it's gliding beautifully, and it looks serene and calm. But if you look under the water, its feet are just going like mad, just crazy to maintain the top half looking so calm and glidey. So this is masking. This is what it's like for someone who's on the spectrum, but who is kind of pretending or putting on this act to fit into the world of neurotypical people. So, for example, I'm sat in my work cafeteria, and there's a big group of people, and I am basically sat there. It's a loud cafeteria. There's so much noise going on. I'm hearing the cash register. I'm hearing people laugh. I'm hearing, I don't know, maybe something outside, some generator noise for some construction outside, other people's conversations, I don't know, a fork dropping on the floor. Like, all of this is going on, plus it's a weird lighting. And then I have like the conversation and trying to understand the dynamics at the table, when I can speak, when other people want to speak, making eye contact with people, like also all of that is going on, and it's my brain is working overtime, whereas someone who is neurotypical, a lot of that is natural for them, or their brain is helping them to filter things out so that they can concentrate on just the conversation or whatever. For me, that's not, it's all happening at once. So I can look very calm, I can be cracking jokes, I can be even the center of the conversation, or I can be on the outside of it, but you won't know. I just look like everyone else. But inside, I am exhausting myself, so that at the end of that kind of lunchtime, I go back to my desk and I'm knackered because I've put in so much effort to be that way at the cafeteria table. And sometimes I can get, even before the end of it, I can get really spaced out, and it's hard to explain. It kind of feels like when you've had too much coffee, and I feel like, oh, like kind of, it's not delirious, but it's just fatigue and like an engine overloading. That's what I feel like inside. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, because of my intelligence and maybe my upbringing, my teaching, like from the schools I went to, I have learned how to behave, how to interact, and it's probably helped me a lot, but it comes at a cost of, you know, the swan with the feet going under the water. That is tiring, and I can burn out. I can maybe do bursts of time. I can do weeks at a time, and then need like a week off where I don't really talk to anyone, and I don't do anything, and I don't show up to any social functions. If I'm in the office, some weeks I might be able to be in the cafeteria all the time, or talk to people in the corridor, crack jokes, and be sort of very social, and, you know, plan things, social things and all that kind of thing. And then other weeks I might just be the guy with his headphones on and doesn't really talk to anyone. Maybe people think I'm depressed or I'm angry, or it's not. It's just that I'm knackered. I have my socialness is burnt out, and so I need to recharge. And by recharging is I kind of shut down myself. It doesn't mean that I can't have a conversation. It doesn't mean that you can't come up to me and talk to me. I don't struggle with that. It just means that I'm not likely to initiate things. That's all. So that's how I got this far in life without being diagnosed, or without people saying, hey, you have traits of autism, or like, you kind of remind me of my autistic little brother or something. Like, that's never really happened with me, but it's because I've been able to mask really, really well. But like I said in the summary, I think mini burnouts throughout my life, but a big one in my mid-30s where I just couldn't do this anymore, and a lot sort of came together, where I just thought, this is all too much. Why is this all too much? And that started me on my journey. I guess I can explain how I came about to getting diagnosed. So it's a little bit amusing for me, but so I was into sneaker collecting and that kind of money making thing aspect of it. I was in a lot of sort of niche internet forums and Discord groups. Now I eventually got onto cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, and these kind of Discord groups that I was in. It was a running joke that people into Bitcoin are on the spectrum, and the reason why that is because it's like it's a special interest, but it's also like the nature of it. It's really early in the what was back in 2017. It was quite early in the adoption. Most people don't understand it, and the market goes up and then has long periods of being down. So like you really have to be stubborn to stick with it. When it drops 80% and it doesn't rise back up for maybe a year, that time period, lots of people fall out. But the people that stick for years are the ones that really understand the technology, but also, I don't know, they have this just like burning interest in it. So that was the running joke, that a lot of people, like long-term Bitcoiners, are on the spectrum. So then some people started sharing this online assessment. It's like an ASD assessment, where you answer these questions. There's a lot. I can't remember how many questions there are, but there's a lot of questions, maybe 50 questions, and there's questions like, I prefer to do things on my own, and it's like strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree, and I prefer a party over over going to the library. Those kind of questions. So people were posting their scores, and I'd say most people had normal scores, like neurotypical scores. They weren't being told that they could be on the spectrum. Whereas my score came back and I was borderline. Like I think you had to score like 100, and it was either 120 or 130, in order, like above that number, in order for it to say, oh, you might have autism. And that was, I don't know, that was like a mind blow for me, because I was like, oh, okay. So I got this kind of borderline score, and I took it again, and then I found other ones and I took those, and I kept getting the same score. It was like borderline. Some of them said you likely have Asperger's syndrome. Others said like, you have like a high functioning or low support autism. And other people, like a few other people in the group, posted those scores, similar scores to mine, and some of them said like, oh, I already know because I was diagnosed when I was much younger, so that the score is accurate. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, okay. And it just sort of kind of set me off on this journey of researching and just doing as many of the tests as I could, and watching many YouTube videos, and just seeing myself in so much of it, that it kind of just like blew my mind. But I did that maybe over like a year or two, where I started to suspect it and started to think it, and it got more and more and more. And then my kind of burnout with life really, the SHIT hit the fan, and I was struggling, and also at the same time I have a son, and I really thought, I want to be in his life, and I want to be a good father, and I want to help him growing up. I want to be able to talk to him. I want to be able to listen to him, help him how he needs to be helped, etc. So I thought, I really need to understand myself better. I need to figure out some things, and I need to improve on some things. So that was a big motivator in me really pushing myself to go and get diagnosed, because I think I probably could have continued without, but like I said, burnouts and struggles with some communications or whatever. I think it's much better how I've done it, and hopefully I can be a good father to him. So yeah, that was a big motivator. And so I thought, I suspect it, and it's probably accurate, but I need to find out for real. So then I basically spoke to my doctor, and I got kind of like, referred, and it was difficult to find somewhere where I live. I had to travel like 3 hours to get to a place that had availability, because there are places where I live, but the waiting list for adults is super long. Like I don't know if it's like a year or 2 years or something, but really this kind of diagnostic assessments, they focus more on children, and I get it, because it's more important to diagnose children. Adults have lived long enough that they're kind of coping with life, I guess. But yeah, once I got on there, I took the tests, and there was like a phone interview that took, I don't know, I think took some time. I had to go there and have like an in-person interview, which took like 2 or 3 hours. They reviewed all of my school reports, which my mum was amazing. Like, she kept almost every single one, so they really had an accurate picture of my schooling. I mean, those people who are watching this who know me from school, they know that I was a bit of a troubled guy. But yeah, I mean, my primary school, I was considered, like, all my reports say I'm like very intelligent and, gifted and blah blah blah. But there was like these hints of like likes to work alone and can be sensitive and that kind of thing. And then my high school years were like a disaster. But it's explainable now. Obviously I was struggling with life, basically, and not understanding how to fit in and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, then finally I did that went through the screening kind of assessment. They determined, yes, you need to be fully tested and diagnosed. Then that took some time to get to, but eventually I did like all the tests, and there's all sorts of things that you need to do on the day for this test. But yeah, the end result was that they thought that they diagnosed me on the spectrum. If I can talk a bit about my life, kind of. I just touched on it in terms of like my schooling and stuff. I think I struggled a lot. I think I really struggled for a long time. I felt really out of place at school. I had friends, and some of them were really good friends, and others I thought were friends, but looking back on it, I don't think they were friends. I think they might have been either, I don't know, bullies, or there's just not nice things going on. There was a lot of racism going on. I think one kid got not expelled, but suspended for essentially calling my mum a race traitor. My nickname for a while was Brown Boy. I was basically in the crowd at school that was like the troublemakers, and constantly I was on report. I got suspended. I was just in trouble all the time at high school, and my grades suffered. But I think I because I'm quite a smart guy, I managed to get the grades, the bare minimum, basically, to get into university. And I don't know. I think I just all this time. I think all this time, I assumed that the racism, and I mean, some of it was physical. Like I've been spat on. I've been punched. Different things have happened to me. I just assumed that all of this, coupled together with being mixed race, and growing up in like a really white area, I thought that all just combined into this kind of feeling like an outsider and maybe socially anxious, maybe needed to work on my confidence, that kind of thing. Was all sort of like what explained my life and the struggles and challenges that I had. And that's how I've always sort of been. I've always just sort of thought that I constantly need to work on myself to improve. And sometimes I can mess up, or I like lose friendships, or like, I don't know, like can't talk to certain people, or I get shy or whatever. I just thought that this was the reason behind it, that it was kind of like almost like a PTSD, like a trauma thing or something. So it's been very revelatory. Is that a word? Revelatory. That it's actually because I'm on the spectrum and my brain is different, and it's kind of a big relief. I think I do have like still like obviously experiencing that kind of racism and that kind of thing has affected me, but I think it's not as much as I assumed it was. And really a lot of the challenges and struggles I've had are because I'm different. And I don't see this as something to be sad about, or that I have a disability or anything. I think I've managed to do many things in my life, achieved many things, and perhaps other people wouldn't have been able to do them. And I think that's awesome. I think that there's lots of positive aspects of being on the spectrum, but I think that there are a bunch of challenges that come with it. And I think the current one is that I'm now living alone for the first time in my life, and making friends has become very difficult as you get older, but also because I think I've always lived with people. So it's like they make friends and I kind of get included in that. So for me, it's like the social side of my life has been quite difficult recently, but the diagnosis has helped me understand why. So I guess there's so much more I could talk about, but I mean, I don't want to get too personal and too deep about this. But just to say, anyone who is perhaps in the same boat as me, who is possibly thinking that they are on the spectrum, investigate it. It's really positive. I know. I mean, I've been really scared about revealing this to everyone. I'm scared that people will treat me differently. I'm scared that I will not get jobs in the future. I'm scared that they won't, like my life, how I'm treated will change. But really, I think it's about understanding yourself, forgiving yourself for things that were thought that were your fault when they're not, and also learning and being able to understand what you need to improve on, and what you're capable of improving on, what you're not capable of improving on, all that kind of stuff. I think it's a really positive thing, and I would recommend, whether it's you're on the spectrum, whether you have ADHD or any other kind of, I don't know, anything else. It's really valuable to investigate it and understand it and get diagnosed. And you don't have to do what I'm doing right now and tell everyone, but I mean, I don't know what the reaction to this is gonna be, but I'm hoping that it's really positive. And if there's people that treat me differently or assume things about me, that's on them. I know myself much better now. And hopefully, as I'm navigating through life from now on, I will be able to make better decisions, and also to be better with the people that I love and with my friends and with my family, and be healthier in my body, be healthier in my head, and yeah, man, just get back to living life, but like much happier. So let's see how that goes. But thanks for listening. Yeah, sorry that this wasn't a beer video. My thinking was that I didn't want to start a new YouTube channel, and I didn't know where else to host this. And also, I don't know, maybe other people who are into beer might be also on the spectrum. Maybe there's a bunch of special interest people out there as well that will watch this and something will click in their brain. I don't know. I'm not saying all brewers are on the spectrum. I'm just saying that some of these kind of niche things, that some people might be going through the same thing as me. And then, yeah, I also just wanted to share this with friends and family, and colleagues and whoever. This was, I don't know, this was a difficult video to make, and I probably could say more, and I've probably forgotten things, and after I've finished recording I'm like, oh, I should have said this or I should have said that. Yeah, in conclusion, I'm still Alistair, I'm still me, I'm still the person that you know or you've watched. I just understand myself better, and maybe you will understand me better now, and maybe moving forward things will be a lot more positive, less misunderstandings, but I doubt that. I just think maybe misunderstandings will be easier to resolve. And yeah, sorry if I talk too much about Bitcoin. Thanks for listening.